Anyways, there can be multiple.
I mean, I'm talking about the data will be saved in the database, so it will read the data.
For database,
yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, that way.
Okay.
I mean, in real life, actually, that is required.
Yeah. That is fine. Yeah, so that's why this kind of thing. I mean, you have to, the idea is okay, but yeah, generally we use any specific type. Okay, so now I think ma'am can share. Yeah, we will come back to this.
No, you can continue, Bhaskar. I think.
No, actually, I was setting the path for a new topic, so we will discuss that later. Yeah,
sure. Okay, fine.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. So, does anyone have any issues with this question? Is there anything to be explained? You want any inputs on? Yeah.
Actually, I have a different issue. I think the YouTube has not started, so recording won't be available if it doesn't. That's what I want to say.
Let me again message the studio team. Aru, is it possible to message the studio team once?
Hello?
Yeah, Aru?
Yeah.
Can we message the studio team once again about the live?
Yeah.
Apparently the live has not started. Yeah, sorry, Bhaskar, you were about.
Yeah, the YouTube live has not started, sir. So
yeah, but I think one of you can also record it personally. I think if it does not start.
Oh, record on this computer, record the cloud. But I think they'll generally do that. Just some problem was, I think they probably have started doing it. We'll just check once, okay? And then if not, we will start the recording. Arup, you can just let me know if I have to start the recording, okay? In case.
Yeah, wait for a minute. Like I have just messaged them.
Yeah.
One more thing, that if I create an editor, then that time I will allow you to write down the text. I will allow you to draw the different objects like rectangles, circles. So when I will design the class for that time I can also, I mean, the shape is the main class, and then gradually I will divide into the different classes, rectangles, circles, ellipses, and by using the polymorphism, I can also draw the objects in the editors, and that can save into the database or in files.
Okay.
That is also a real life example.
Yeah, we will go to these things. Okay.
Yeah. It depends upon what type of system I need to design based on that class need to be designed.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, ma'am. I think it started.
Yeah. YouTube live is okay. So, does anyone want to attempt this question? What will be the output of this program? Can somebody attempt? If you've already done it, you must be knowing it for sure. Even otherwise, does anyone want to give it an attempt? It's a very easy, straightforward question.
Yeah, C is the answer.
Yeah, why?
Yeah.
Can you tell me why? Who
yeah, but here I'm printing this area and volume, right? Correct. So yeah, so area and volume that is area is 1000, right? 20 into 50.
Yeah. Correct.
And volume is given -1 over here.
Where?
Because no, it is calling this volume, right? The shape volumes. That's why it is coming here.
Yeah, exactly. So this rectangle class is implementing two interfaces, right? One is shape and the other is printable. Shape has an area method, which is by default an abstract method. The methods inside an interface are abstract unless they are default. So this is an abstract method that has to be necessarily overridden inside the rectangle class, and that's what is happening here. And then what happens when you, so first, where do we start with? We start with the main function, right? So every time when we want to see what the output of a program is, we go to the main method. From main method, you see we are creating a rectangle object with parameter values as 20 and 50. Where does this go? Whenever you see new rectangle, it always means it is some constructor. So you go to the constructor of the rectangle class. This is a constructor of the rectangle class, and it initializes the instance variables W and H with the parameters which it get via the parameterized constructor. So these values are set now, W and H are set. Okay. And then what is it asking? It is asking for r.print method. So this method is completed. Then what does it do? It comes back to the So this constructor is almost like a method only, right? Which is initializing these values. So once this method execution is completed, it is coming back to the r.print, which is the next step in execution. So if you see when the program is loaded into the main memory, it will always have a pointer to where the current execution is happening, right? So once it does this, it goes and checks to the this function, wherever this function is there in the memory. Thereby, it completes the running of this. So why I'm specifically talking about this in the case of Python, you would have seen something like a sequential execution, right? But here, everything, the control flow is managed from within the main function. So main function, it goes the first statement, whatever method is there, it will call that, do that. So this extending, implementing, where it has to, which method it has to find, all those things are decided by the Java hierarchy and all the rules that we have set within Java. And ultimately, the control of execution, that is controlled from within the main program. Now, once this constructor is completed, right, it goes to the next step, which is r.print. What is R? R is an object of rectangle. So you have to look for the print method inside the rectangle. So you go to the class and then you look for the print method inside the rectangle, which is this method. The first step is you have to print the area and then you have to print the volume. So where is this area method? So area is not having any object associated with it, right? So what does this mean? It means this area method has to be inside this class only, right? So it goes and checks, okay, there is an area method, right? This area method is executed. Now it checks for the volume method. When it checks for the volume method, it sees that there is no volume method. So then it goes to the parent classes, right? So it checks for the parent class and it sees that, okay, inside the shape, there is a volume. So if this was not implemented, then it would have given a compiler error, but it has a default implementation, which returns a -1.0. And then the control, now the execution control is finished here, right? What does it do? It once again comes back to main program. Main program execution is over, and that's how we get this answer. Okay, I hope that is clear for everyone. Let us look at the next example. So if this is clear for everyone and you don't want to waste your time on this question, just let me know. We'll move to the next question. Otherwise, I'll just briefly explain like I did for the other one. Does everyone know here? Does anyone wants this question to be explained? Does anyone want this question to be explained? Can you raise your hand? Okay, everyone knows it? Okay, then I think we'll move to the next one because we already have so many other topics to discuss, right? Okay. I think if that's the case with all questions, my job becomes easy. Okay, this question, how about this one? Does anyone want this to be explained? Is this question clear for everyone? Please raise your hands if anybody wants this question to be explained. If not, we'll move to the next question. Okay.
Ma'am, can you just scroll above a bit?
Yeah.
And please discuss that earlier.
Which one?
The one having the loops. Yes, this one.
This one. Is this Pooja?
Yes.
Yeah, Pooja, you want me to explain this one?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so as I explained earlier, yeah, Bhaskar, you were about to ask something, no?
No. Yeah, I was looking for something. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I ask one more thing? Like when we access a function, sometimes we do print and sometimes we do return. Okay.
Yeah.
So it sometimes confuses me. Like when should we print and when should we return?
See, when you have a return type, it must necessarily return something. Okay. See, for instance, you have an int here, right? Can you see the int here? Just one second.
Yes.
This one, no? Then it must necessarily return something. But it could also print something. There is no problem. But here it is a void. And it may or may not print anything. That is totally up to it. But it cannot return anything because the return type is void.
So whenever we'll give void, we can never return anything. It can only be.
We cannot return anything. Yes. We have to specify the return type because see from where we are calling, we are actually taking it to some variable, right? And that variable has to be compatible. So all these things have to be informed to the compiler ahead. Okay, see, I'm going to call this method and that's going to return to me a specific type of an object. and that has to be received in an object which is either itself or is compatible with that object, something like some parent class object.
Yeah,
So we have to
void function cannot return value, but it can return. I mean, I can use the return statement.
a return, simple return, right? Without
Yeah,
any return
Yeah,
value.
that is control.
I have not tested it out. Yeah, that must be possible. But I mean, it is as much as well as like, so it is almost like it's something like a break, right?
Uses some
return
more
means control will be returned.
Control
If
will
you
be
write
returned.
only the return, the control will be returned back to the main, like caller.
Yeah. So
But
you can
no
have
values
a
will be returned. No values will be returned.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So you write a return here, and then you write a system.out.println, right? So this will not be executed. This second return system.out.println will not be executed.
Yeah, it will not print anything. Yes.
Yeah, in
It
case of
doesn't
Java,
print.
mostly it will show an error also because this will be printed as unreachable code.
Yeah, compilation error.
Yeah, this will be written as unreachable code. But even if you have a simple return, well, if you don't even write it, it will still come back to where it transferred the control from, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it will return back to the function, caller function, which called that.
Yeah,
This control will be returned, nothing else.
correct. Control will be returned back here. So Pooja, is that clear?
Then
or you
ma'am,
have- Yeah. See? Sandeep?
first Pooja may confirm whether she is clear with this. Then I
Yeah,
can
with
proceed with my
return
question.
and print, yes, I am.
Okay, so
Okay.
I have a related question to this discussion. Suppose I want to design a method which based on some condition, sometimes it will print something or return a string, and some other time it will return an integer value.
So you can return it by object.
This kind of method can I?
Object, no?
Okay.
You can have it as a string. Wrapper classes you've studied, right? One can be a string object, the other can be an integer object. When you return an object, you can have the return type as object for that method.
Okay, that encapsulates everything.
Yeah. I mean, Bhaskar and Aru, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. That's the thing, yes. But normally it's not a good idea to return different kind of thing. The problem will happen once you return it as an object, once you catch it. Now you need to exactly know to cast it to what. How do you understand cast it to what? It's very difficult, right? Because you do not know your
Okay.
function is returning int float or whatever, right? So how do you know to cast it to a int float double? That's not a good idea, right?
Okay.
So that will be better, like you write a void function and put it inside a reference type, inside an object, because if you write it into a reference type, the change will be reflected in the caller also, right? It's like a pass by
Exactly.
reference becomes. So if you
Right,
pass a
right.
reference type, change over there so that it will be reflected. So you can create an object which can catch an integer, which can also catch a different like float double, and accordingly you set it. That will be the better idea. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you then.
Yeah. Sandeep, you have anything else on this?
No, ma'am, you can go ahead.
Okay.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah,
Viral
yeah.
this side.
Sorry?
Viral Jan.
Viral. Okay. Hi. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have somewhat similar and hypothetical doubt here in this case.
Yeah.
So if I have understood it correctly, you have mentioned public int comp may or may not return integer value. Is it?
No, it will return. It has to return an integer
has
value.
to return.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, compiler will give an error.
Okay. All right. Then there is like the doubt itself is solved. So what I thought is it may or may not return. So what would be the access control in terms of when it won't return?
No. May or may not return was for system.out.println. It may or may not print anything, but if it has a return type, it has to return something of that type.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, Pooja asked a comparison between return and system.out.println, right? So for system.out.println, it may or may not be there. That is not at all mandatory. But return type is mandatory if you have a return type in the object definition.
Clear. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Shall
Ma'am,
I?
in this,
Yeah.
this that comp method, right? We're depending on the strings inbuilt compared to method to return a value, right? So
So just give me a minute. I will come from this. So Pooja wanted me to explain this, so I'll come to that.
Okay.
I mean, with respect to the doubt that Pooja or Sandeep Viral last, I don't think you have any other questions, right? So I will come like starting from line 1, I'll come there and then we can discuss that. Okay. Is that okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Pooja. So I'm just trying to explain from you. So as I said, our execution again starts from the main function. We have always been insisting on this because some of you still have a confusion, like, where like a Python program starting from line 1, it starts execution or something. So we always start from the main method. That is the point of entry. So what does this line do? Pooja, do you want to tell me what does this line do?
It will.
Yeah. No, if you don't know it, just let me know. There is no compulsion at all.
Ma'am, you can start it.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So what does it do? It creates an array of object type, which is name. Okay. So where is the name? Name is defined here, right? Either this has to be a standard. So this has to be either a standard Java class, or this has to be something that we have defined here. So here it is something that we have defined. There is a Java class. Okay. Now what happens? What does
one or below one? There are two, name and then we have below just public name. Yes.
This one. This is the constructor. No, I think you're always confused, right?
Yes. Yes.
Here, this is inside. See, you see the indentation. No? We try to keep the indentation clear so that you don't have the confusion. So this doesn't have a return type. See, there is no return type, and it has the same name as the class. For a class, this must have the keyword class here. If there is a keyword class, then only that is a class. Here there is no keyword, right? So, and this method has the same name as the class. Therefore, this is a constructor of the class. Okay. This is a constructor of the class. So this is the one that we are looking at. When you say an object of type name, then this is what we are looking, the one which is circled, right? That is what we are looking at. Got it? No, that's a type of that object, that class.
Function notations will be there with the constructor. That is also another thing.
Sorry, I missed you.
Constructor have a function notation, right? First bracket, open and close.
Yeah, constructor is a method itself, right?
Yeah,
it's a method. It's a method. Yeah, it's a method which is there for all the classes. By default, it is a method for all the classes that we define. Okay, whether we define it or not, by default there is a constructor. Okay, so that's why we are able to call like a new name in brackets, right? Even if we have not defined that constructor inside the class, we are still able to declare an object because there is a default constructor which is there inside that class. Okay. Okay. Now what are we doing? We are actually initializing the name class with these 5 values. So how do you do that? What do you mean by initialization? You go to the constructor. Okay. This is the constructor. Which is the constructor? This is the constructor, and it is taking 2 parameters, which is the first name and the last name. So you come down here and you see that for every constructor, this is calling the constructor, right? This is the new name. This is calling the constructor, and everywhere it is calling a parameterized constructor, which takes two strings as input. One is the first name, and this is the last name. So whenever you create an object and you pass these 2 as parameters, it will go to the constructor. It will create an object of that, and it will assign the value. So the first time the new name is called, there is an object created with the F name as Charlotte and the second name as Brown. The second time you call the same new name, there is another object which is created with the first name as Ava and the second name as Smith. And then there is a third one. So you understand it, right? Now here, while you are declaring the array itself, you are initializing the array of the objects of name with 5 values, each of which have a first name, each of which has a first name and a last name. Okay. So this, I hope this part is clear, Pooja. Pooja, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Now what are we calling? We are calling a sort names. What does the sort name? So as I told you, we can call methods, but in Java, everything is associated with an object. But here we are calling it without an object. Why?
Because I think we imported that library package util library.
No, we are calling that it is possible because it is inside the same class. F class, right? The main method is inside the class and the sort method is also inside this class.
Also, it's static, right?
It's
Okay,
static,
right.
yeah. It's static, yeah. Okay, but even if it is not static, you can still call this, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but from inside a static method.
Yeah, that's correct. That's why it is static, correct. Yeah. Within a static context, you cannot call non-static methods. That's why we have declared it as a static method, correct. You are right. Okay, now when we call the sort names method, what happens? The control, the execution control will come here, okay? Why does it come here? It will actually check for whether there is a method named sort inside this class. If it is not there, then it would have gone to the parent class. But because we have an implementation inside the class itself, we'll go to the first step. Now there is a double for loop. This is nothing but a loop to sort the array. Okay. So what is it doing? It will check for the length of this names array. It will loop through this list. Basically, this, when I say list, it is not the Python list. It's the list of the first name and last name, the objects, right, that we have. It will loop through this. How many times? As many elements are there in this array. Okay, that's why we are taking this names dot length. Then you have another one for j equal to 0, j less than names dot length minus I minus 1. So this is the standard sort. You can take a simple integer example like 2, 3, 6, 1, 4. The same array you can. So one pointer will be I will be here and j will be here, and will compare the two. And if the second one is smaller, it will exchange. Okay. So that is what basically it does here. I will explain to you how it is happening. So you are looping it. You have two pointers I and j, which are pointing to these elements of this array. So those who have done PDSA, it must be quite easy. For the others, I'm just briefly explaining how it is happening. You have the if names.j comparing with names j plus 1. Okay. What does this do? So names of j is an element of, sorry, is an object of which class? The name class, right? Names of j, because we have declared names as an array of type names. So names of j is nothing but it is an object of the class name. Now name.comp, name of j.comp, what does do? It checks, okay, do I have a method inside the name class with the name comp, and then the control will come here. Okay, and in the parameter, what is it taking? It is taking a comparable object. So what is comparable here? Comparable is the parent class of name. You can see this, right? See, I had to draw everywhere because I am not sure whether you can see my mouse. Otherwise, I would have just settled for the mouse. It's becoming very cluttered. But yeah. So name is actually, so the parent of name is comparable here, right? So in this sort procedure, it is actually taking the comparable object as argument. Sorry, this one, comparable object as argument. And that's why you're passing the names j plus 1. That is the next element of j. This is j plus 1. This one you will pass as argument here. And then what does the first step do? The first step compares the last name of the current object. So what is the current object, which is the calling object here? Let me just erase a lot of these things. So it's getting, just give me a minute. Sorry, I'm a bit clumsy with this. Sorry. Okay, I'll just show you which are related. Okay. Yeah. So what do you have here? Names j is calling comp method with the argument names j plus 1. So names j, when you go here, right, the f name, the l name, whatever now you're going to refer is for the names j, right? Because that is the current object that is calling the comp method, right? I hope that is clear. This means once you come inside this class now, this L name, F name, everything is now referring to the names j. And whatever is coming in here as this argument, right? That is the names of j plus 1. Okay. Whatever is x, that is coming in as the names j plus 1. So you're comparing the last name of the object which is calling it, which is names of j, and the last name of the object which is coming in as argument to this method comp. Now, compare to is a method inside the string class. Okay, string class, what does it do? Say it is comparing, say, string str1 dot compare to str2. So if str1 is greater than, when I say str1 greater than str2, what does it mean? In alphabetic order, okay? Because that's what how we are sorting the strings. That's how the comparison happens for strings. If string 1 is greater than string 2, then the compare to method will return a positive integer, positive number. If string 1 is less than string 2, then this returns a negative number. If string 1 equal to string 2, then this compare to method will return a 0. Okay, so it is checking. What is it checking? lname dot compare to equal to x dot. So why do you need to typecast it to name? Because you're getting it into an object of comparable, right? Here you're getting it an object of comparable. So lname is there only inside name. The comparable class does not have, comparable interface does not have the lname. The lname is present only inside the name. So you have to typecast it to name, and then you call the instance variable, which is lname, right? Now x dot lname, you're comparing these two. If they are equal, that is, if that is equal to 0, what are you doing? Then you are comparing the first name. So you first compare the last name, then you are comparing the first name. If these both are equal, then you are comparing the first name. If these both are not equal, then you will return the value, whatever. You are basically telling, informing the calling function that whichever is greater or smaller. That is what is denoted by the number that is returned by this method. Okay, it's actually returning an integer which is either positive or negative or 0 based on what are the two values that it gets here. And if they are equal, it will then call the first name, compare the first name. If they are not equal, either it is greater than or less than, greater than 0 or less than 0, it will return that value itself. Okay, based on now what happens? Your function execution, the comp function execution is over here. What does it do? It returns a control back to where it called from. It was calling from here, right? Now it has got a return value. Suppose you are comparing, let us see the two names. Let me look at something like Ava Smith and Emma Johnson. Okay.
So first last name will be compared.
Yes, first we compare the last name, sorry, Emma Johnson, right? So first is Smith and Johnson are compared, right? And we find that Smith is greater than Johnson. Okay, so what is Smith? So this is, so I'm just looking at the first iteration of this, not the first time no exchanges happened. Then names of J will be Ava. Okay, the other one, this will be Emma Williams. Okay, this is probably not the best example. Okay, Emma Williams and because I want to show you that this will get exchanged. That's why.
Emma Williams and Emma Johnson.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is names of J plus 1 I want it, right? So I want two adjacent ones which will get exchanged. So let us look at the example of, say, Emma Williams and Olivia Smith. I'm sorry. Emma Williams. Okay. Emma Williams and
Emma Johnson.
No, Olivia Smith. I want to take two adjacent values. That's how you will compare there, no?
Okay.
Because the J and J plus 1, right? At least in the first iteration, that will be like adjacent only, right? So you are comparing the Emma Williams and Olivia Smith, and you see that the last two names, right? So this Williams is greater than Smith in the alphabetic order. Is that correct? Williams is greater than Smith. So names of J is Emma Williams and names of J plus 1 is Olivia Smith. So when it goes here, it compares the two and it will return a positive number because Williams is greater than Smith. That will be returned by this statement. Okay. So this will return a positive number. Then what does it do? Then is the exchange that is happening here. The two are getting interchanged. So it will have a temporary value T name to which it will allocate the value Williams, not the Emma Williams value, right? And then the Olivia Smith gets returned to the Emma Williams, and then the Emma Williams will get returned back to the Olivia Smith's location. So that way you exchange Emma Williams and Olivia Smith. So for those who are already aware of algorithms, this is probably one of the first things that you do, like exchanging two memory locations, values in two memory locations. But for those who are uninitiated into the process of, these kind of things, I'm just explaining it now. Okay. So you exchange these. Why? Because Emma, the second name of Williams is greater than second name of Smith. So you exchange this, and the sorted order now, Olivia Smith will be coming before Emma Williams. That's what is happening in this loop. Again, this goes on until the full list is sorted based on the last name. And if the last names are same, what happens? It will compare based on the first name. So that's how the sorting is happening here. Once the full list is exhausted, right? Once the full list is exhausted, by the time both the for loops complete running, we will get a list which will be sorted such that the last names, the list will be sorted based on the increasing last names. And if there are same last names, then it will get increased sorted based on the first names. So here, which is the correct, and then you are just printing that list here. So which is the correct option?
B.
B. Why? Because B.
First one will not be changed. Then
yeah, first one actually Smith and Brown, right?
No,
This
yeah.
Here, this is not sorted. This itself is not sorted.
Yeah.
If you see here, B, J, S, S, W, this is sorted. But within Smith, it actually looks for the first name, right? This is how it is sorted. Okay. Pooja, is this clear?
Yes. No.
Any questions? Any questions, Pooja?
No questions.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Madam, this exchanging the address of the variables,
Mm-hmm.
in Python, there is a convenient way of doing that, a comma b is equal to b comma a. Does similar construct exist in Java?
I'm not sure really. I don't know.
No,
Maybe
no.
the array class, I don't know whether there is any. See, there is a default, not default, there is an array class in Java, array list, array class. I don't know if any of these classes, which I think will be taken in the week 6, but I'm not sure if any of them have any built-in functions. Arup, Bhaskar, any of you know about it? Anand, anybody knows about such a function?
No, actually, that type of function is not existing.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it's there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I'm just giving you the hint. There are like array list and all that default Java classes. So you can just go and check if any of them will provide this. Any of them have the methods for that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Who is this? Can you name yourself? Yeah. Sorry.
Viral here.
Viral. Yeah. Viral. Yeah.
Just a clarifying question.
Yeah.
So when you say compare maybe last name or first name,
Mm-hmm.
will it compare character by character or whole?
Yeah. It will be character by character. So if you have, say, Wales and Williams, right? This is what you're asking, no?
Yeah. That was the doubt.
So Williams will be greater than Wales. This will be greater than Wales.
Thanks.
And then it compares, and then it finds that the both Williams are same. Yeah. Sorry. Both Smith are same in this case.
Yeah.
So, but that is an internal implementation of the compare to method, right? This compare to is a default method given by Java.
Right.
So, okay. So I am assuming that it is a character, but in general, I don't think there is any other algorithm. Any implementation, I think it will basically look at that.
So I was just thinking out loud probably, and thinking about different other options. That
do you have any other idea how it could be happening? Like it should be character by character, right?
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, that is the hunch.
Yeah, even I'm guessing that should be. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, someone else was asking.
It is case sensitive.
Yeah, must be,
I
because
mean,
I think it must be an ASCII comparison. I'm not
yeah,
sure.
yeah, because the whilst W is a small character, then it would be the bigger.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I cannot comment authoritatively on that because I've not checked it. It must be an ASCII comparison, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyone
If
else?
one word is a substring of the other, like if William and Williams are there, then William would be the smallest one, right?
The bigger one will be the larger, because see, the last one, it will take an empty character, something like this. No? William and Williams. It will compare these. And last one, it will find that this and an empty space, right?
that is null.
Yeah. So this will be like the bigger one.
Okay.
See, these things all, everything, I mean, you can just experiment it. And if you think any of those things which I have just mentioned, these are things like we would have seen some point, but not sure if anything has changed. But you can just try it out. And if there is any difference, please post in the Discord. Okay. So we also learn from them. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So Pooja, shall I move on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, this question. Does anyone, this is a very easy question, so anybody can attempt. Okay, nobody wants to go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Missing return statements.
That's it? Only missing return statements?
No, actually, the line number 7 and line number 10 missing return statement. Yeah, line number 13 also.
Yeah, so what is problem with 7?
Yes, 7.
7, there are two issues shown here, right? Which of those is the problem?
7, yeah, incorrect
Wrongful use of the keywords
Yeah.
extend and implements.
Yes, it's actually it's incorrect. Okay, incorrect usage of extends, but what we have to exchange is this and this. You cannot exchange extends and implements because extends has to be written first, right?
Yes.
So you cannot exchange extends and implements.
Right.
Incorrect usage of extends and implements doesn't mean you can exchange these two. You have to exchange shape and polygon only, right?
Right.
So the other one is like missing return statement. Yeah. So somebody was asking like whether it must necessarily have a return type. So it must have a return type, otherwise it'll throw a compiler error. Okay. There is no, sorry, it has a return type, so it must return an integer. If it doesn't, it'll show a compiler, through a compiler error. Okay. Okay. So
Ma'am, here is a public and abstract required in the
this one
in line number 5.
public and abstract.
Yeah, that function
This
is
one.
the method is abstract.
Because the methods that are defined inside an interface are
By default
public
abstract.
and abstract.
Yeah,
And-
it is
and
not
public,
required. It is not required.
It's kind of redundant only then.
It is redundant, but that is probably what will confuse you, right? You look at, okay, this is an abstract, so this is an abstract class, this is an abstract class. No, and then you realize, okay, this is not an abstract class, this is an interface, and that's where this confusion comes, right?
Okay.
So it's slightly meant to confuse you also, but this does not throw an error. It can have an abstract, it can have the abstract modifier, even though by default it is abstract, you can still have the abstract modifier preceding the function declaration.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll move to the next question. Anybody wants to try this? Yeah, so slightly not interesting question, but slightly people may not even expect that, but yeah, it's very simple again. So anybody wants to give it a try?
Yeah, this is the answer. That's a widely used system.
Yeah, so why is C the answer? When you
The subclass constructor by default
Yeah.
calls the
exactly.
constructor of the
Basically,
superclass.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
That's correct. Yeah. That's the reason. So when you are executing this, what does it do? It will go to the constructor of this class. Here there is no constructor, right? There is no by default. There is no constructor, so it goes to the parent. It will anyway. No, first it will go to the parent construct. First it will execute the parent constructor. Yeah, correct.
Yes.
Yeah, it will first execute the parent constructor. So this resolution will be printed, and then it goes to the resolution method, right? It has created an object. Now it can call the resolution method, which is this method, this overridden method inside the subclass, and that has this text. So it will print the method which is inside the constructor of the parent class, as well as the print statement inside the resolution method. Okay, so that's it. It's very simple. The only thing that you have to remember is that even though the year 2022 doesn't have a constructor, it will still execute the constructor of the parent class. Okay, that's the one takeaway from this question. Okay.
Ma'am, if I had a constructor in year 2022, a parameterized
then both will
constructor.
get executed. Both will get executed.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So this question, yeah. Anybody wants to tell me what is happening? Okay, so I will just briefly explain. Yeah, tell me.
That extends.
Yeah, actually, area of rectangle is. Yeah. Please go ahead.
But rectangle and circle are interfaces, right?
Yes.
So how does it generate a compiler error?
No. It has a answer. I mean, the C is the answer. The
But
area
why? But why?
Yeah,
see, you are actually extending two interfaces. No, is that correct thing to do? Rectangle is an interface. A circle is also an interface, and the shape is extending two interfaces. Is that correct?
Yeah, but abstract method is overridden in the derived class, so that will not be the problem, because the derived class object is over here. I'm referring to the derived class object. So whenever I am calling the area of the rectangle and area of the circle, the derived class.
No. Suppose no. Hold on. So that is not exactly the reason. See here, what it is doing is this is an interface. Right? This is an interface. That is why this extends word is permitted. If this was a class, even if it is overridden, you cannot extend two interfaces. What do you mean by implementing an interface? Implementing an interface means that all the methods in that will be overridden, necessarily overridden inside this class. That's what you mean by implement. But can an interface define those methods? An interface cannot have function definitions. It can only have function declarations. So you should differentiate between a function declaration and a definition. Declaration means
only abstract class will not be the definition, but I can have the concrete class, I believe, in the Java interface.
Sorry, did I say anything wrong? What is it? Sorry, I didn't understand. Ahim, right? Who is speaking?
Yeah,
sorry.
My name is Ashim.
Ashim, sorry, Ashim. Yeah, Ashim. Sorry, I can just repeat what you said.
These are the abstract class, right?
Interfaces, huh? Yeah. Interfaces.
Yeah, interfaces. So abstract class is overridden in the derived class, right? After using the interface of this shape.
You mean to say abstract methods, right?
Yeah, abstract method. Yeah.
No. I see. Why is the extends word permitted here? That's what my question was. Why are you able to write the extends word here? See, these two are interfaces, right? These two are interfaces, no? So you normally, when you write something, implements interfaces and extends classes. That's what you write, right? But here you are actually extending two interfaces. How are you able to do that was my question.
So it is wrong to say an interface implements another interface, right? We always
say you cannot. When you say
extends.
implement, when you say implement, you are implementing something means you are making something which is of more practical use. So if it has to be usable, that function has to be defined, not just declared. So I was just trying to say what a function definition and declaration is. When you say you are declaring a function, this is a function declaration. I'm going to say that there exists a function like this. When I say I'm defining a function, it means that this is what the function is going to do. That is, it has a body. And when you call this function, this is what is going to execute it, what is going to get executed. Where when I'm saying there is a function declaration, this is simply a declaration. You're saying that there is a method like this. You are not saying what it is going to do. But when you say a function definition, it means this is going to exactly define what the method is going to do. So inside an interface, you cannot have a function definition unless it is a default definition. Right? You cannot have a function definition unless it is a default definition. So when you are going to, if you say an interface shape implements rectangle and circle, then you must necessarily implement the abstract classes, abstract methods inside that, which is not possible in interface because an interface does not permit a function definition unless it is a default definition.
Yes.
Got it? No. So that is why we are using, it is extending. Extending means that this is going to inherit all the properties of this. It's not going to say that, okay, I'm going to implement whatever is there inside this, but whatever function declarations are there, whatever other properties are there, that will be inherited by the shape.
And Java only allows multiple inheritance in case of interface. If it is class,
Yes.
then only one class can be done. Yes.
Yeah, correct. So, I mean, you can't really, I mean, I'm not even sure whether you call it as multiple inheritance, but generally we say Java doesn't permit multiple inheritance because inheritance is more like extending, right? So, yeah, of course, I mean, it is possible in this sense. Like again, I'm saying extend is possible in the case of interface. Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah. So this is the one crucial difference that you have to see here. Here, this interface is extending two interfaces because it is not going to implement or override, or I mean, it's rather give the function definition for any of the abstract methods declared in its parent interface. So that's why we have the extends keyword here. Whereas if you see 2-dimension is going to implement shape. Now shape has inherited these two function declarations inside this. When you say extend, these both function declarations are now inside this interface. Now, when 2-dimension implements shape, it has to implement all the methods which it has inherited from all the parent classes. Suppose we had number of other parent classes, and every parent class has some declared method, then it has to implement all those methods inside this class. Got it? No. So here, this is a class which is implementing the shape. The shape is again an interface which is extended to other interfaces. Okay. Got it? No.
So, madam, what you said, if it's a class, then it has an obligation of implementing all the declared methods in the super class or super interface. That's why it uses the word implements. But what if there is a default method like the
yeah,
one
so
wherever
I said that, I always said default, except default, except default, except default.
Okay, right? Okay, I missed that. Okay.
That's like an exception, right? Yeah, because it's all that is meant to be something like where you can, where there is something like a fallback plan. If you don't have an implementation, okay, you fall back to this. That's it.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Yeah. So is that clear? Anyone else has any questions on this? Okay.
Ma'am, here in interface shape, can we have default method by the name of area rectangle and area
yeah,
circle?
it can default methods with the name area rectangle and area circle is it? I have not tried it out. It must be possible, I think.
Yeah, it's possible, I think.
Yeah. Okay. What you're saying is like it has got two methods from the parent. Can it have a default implementation inside shape, right?
Yeah.
So Arup has clarified that it is possible. I am not
here inside the interface shape.
Yeah.
No, I think no, that's not, may not be. I'm thinking here like
in 2-dimension, right? Oh,
yeah,
no, inside this you mean. No, he's asking whether a default implementation of these two methods is possible.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, even I'm not sure. Yeah, we have to check it out. Yeah, logically, we can't say anything, right? I mean, how Java has implemented something, we have to try it out. I'm not sure. If anybody else in this group know about it, you can just throw some light. But yeah, otherwise, we'll figure it out later after this call. Okay. Okay, I think that is all confused. Yeah.
Yeah, Viral this side again. I have another just doubt. Can an interface be possible without having any method?
Yeah,
Like
it can have
public-
okay.
Like public
Please.
interface rectangle and just empty bracket.
Yeah, you can have it. It's called some marker interface. So there are special use of it. We'll discuss it later.
Okay, all right.
I think it's there in one of the activity questions, right, Arun? The marker interface.
I have seen somewhere. But
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am, it's in one of the activity questions.
Yeah, right. Okay.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So that's all. There is nothing more complicated about this question. That's all. This is only line that you have to note. Yeah. So this is something that we already discussed. You're calling the constructor of new sub. New sub, first it will execute the default the constructor of the base class, and then it will execute the constructor of the subclass. So you will get this as the output. I just want to check it. So, yeah, that's the right answer. Okay. Okay. I hope this is clear. No, this is something we discussed in the previous question also. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So this is also like we start from the main. Okay. There is a traveler object that is being created here. So while creating this constructor, you are calling another constructor for New Hyderabad. So let us see what New Hyderabad does. What is the Hyderabad class? Hyderabad class is here, which is implementing the interface city. Okay. So you are calling this New Hyderabad and it has no constructor. So a New Hyderabad object is created. But inside the traveler constructor, right? What is it taking? It is a parameterized constructor that you have for traveler. Yeah. This is a parameterized constructor which takes in the first parameter of type object, which is city, of type city. Second one is a string. So New Hyderabad is implementing city. And so New Hyderabad, this will actually pass, the New Hyderabad object is passed to a city reference. And then you have a string which is named Journey. So this is very straightforward. And then traveler.journey will call this. Okay. So I think the main method. Okay, I think that is it. I don't think there is anything more important. There is an abstract method which is overridden in both classes, and I'll call the correct method based on which object is being passed here. Okay. I don't think there is any confusion in this, so I'm not able to figure out what the exact problem was. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, Bhaskar, are you on the call? Do you want to explain this question?
Yeah. Okay. So this question and that timer question, these two questions I will. Before going to that, I want to do something else. But so we can discuss the other question if there are any. Then we can go to these two questions. This question and the last question. That
yeah. So Bhaskar, I think Anand is on the call. I think Anand, are you on the call?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay.
I think
then
Anand will explain the last question.
Okay, so, I will do it at last.
Sure. Okay, sure. So any other questions? If not, we will. So this last question also can be explained only after that. Is it, Bhaskar? You want to explain something? No? So this can also come after that. Is it?
No, actually, okay. So that is actually important, but let
so
Anand
what I'm asking is, can Anand explain this?
Yeah. Ma'am, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Do you want me to stop sharing so that you can share and write or something?
Yeah, I will share.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Ma'am, can you give me permission to share?
Yeah. 1 second.
Anand given.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Can anybody tell what are the callback methods in this program? So see this program from scratch. So this is a timer class, and it has the start method, and this is employee class. It has a check method, notification 1 and notification 2. So what are the callback methods in this program? See, what is callback method? Can anybody tell what is callback method?
Sir, can you, make the text size smaller? The whole code is not visible, so it is better if you can see the whole code.
Or it'll be better if you can go full screen.
Oh,
I think this is full screen. I think it's because it's an another interface. Anand, can you just click that left arrow so that it?
1 second, ma'am. Now it's clear.
Yeah.
Okay. So can anybody tell what are the callback methods in this program?
So there are two classes, employee and timer.
Yeah.
Okay. So first, the employee class has a check method.
Okay.
Which creates an timer object.
No. Just I'm asking what are the callback methods in this program?
Also, the employee calls the timer object with start method, and the timer, when the start method is initiated, it calls back the employee object with the method notification 1 and notification 2.
Yeah. Okay. So here notification 1 and notification 2, these two are the callback methods in the employee, but these two are not explicitly called by the notification called by the employee class itself. Okay, these should be called by the timer class whenever particular event is occurred. Okay, so here callback method, notification 1 and notification 2, these two, okay, should be called whenever particular event is occurred. Okay, these two callback methods not called by the employee class explicitly. Okay, so here employee class is going to call the check method. See here in main method, okay, we are going to create an object for employee class, and we are calling check method only. We are not calling this notification 1 or notification 2 explicitly. Okay, so we are not calling, just we are going to call the timer in this check method. Okay, so here e.check. So now control will come to here. Control will come to here in this method. Okay, we are going to create an object for timer class, and we are going to start the timer by passing date object as parameter. Okay, now 1 second. So now from here to here, control will come here to here. Okay, so whenever you created an object here, so automatically what happened? Constructor will be called. Okay, so constructor will be called. So whenever this constructor is called, okay, so here this employee object, okay, this employee object is initialized by this employee. Okay, so now employee object is initialized. Okay, so here this start method, okay, this start method is going to check. Okay, so today day, okay, today day, so whether today is weekend or not, it is going to check. Okay, actually here getDay method return values from 0 to 6. Okay, the possible values written by the getDay method are 0 to 6. Already some hint is given below this program. See here, getDay method return an integer value from 0 to 6. Okay, 0 is nothing but Sunday, 1 is nothing but Monday, like that up to Saturday. Okay, Saturday value is 6, so it return some integer value. Okay, so already we know that Saturday and Sunday are weekends. Okay, so weekends. So whenever, so getDay method return either 0 or 6. Okay, then we are going to here this timer is going to call the notification 1. What is the notification 1? Happy weekend means whenever, okay, whenever the day is either Saturday or Sunday, it is going to call the notification method. Okay, so for suppose I executed this program today. What happened? Which callback method is called by the timer class? Can anybody tell?
Notification 1.
Notification 1. What is the return value?
Happy weekend.
What is the return value? I'm asking get day method return value.
Okay.
Void.
No,
6.
it's yeah, 6 it will
Saturday.
return. Okay, so here data.get day means it return 6 because today is Saturday, no? So it returns 6. So here get a day. Okay, 6 is equal to 6. True, no? So here we used or no. So it won't check a second one. Okay, so here it returned true. So it is going to call the notification 1. So simply, okay, it come to here. Okay, so this callback method is going to call. Okay, for suppose if you execute this program on Monday, okay, what which callback method call?
2.
By the timer.
Notification
2. Okay, so here based on the day, okay, when you are going to execute this method, based on the day it will call the callback method. Okay, based on the event it will call the particular callback method. Okay, is it clear for everyone? Any doubts?
Clear.
Okay. If anybody have any doubts, so you can ask.
Yeah, I think Bhaskar, we can go to the next topic, right? Yeah. Anand, I think you can stop sharing. Thanks.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so no doubts on that. Okay, fine. So see, I was planning to discuss a code actually, but before doing that, I would like to discuss few topics, few points, and then we will move to that code. So I will share my screen. Okay. So can someone tell me? I mean, we will discuss 2 or 3 questions, and then we will move to the another topic. So my first question would be, do we have constructors in the interface?
No, interface can't have constructors.
Sorry, I could not hear you clearly. Can you repeat once?
Constructors doesn't have constructor.
Okay, interface doesn't have constructor. Okay, fine. So let's say B A equal to, sorry. Fine. Okay. Now, do you think in the constructor of this class, this B class, any super call is happening or not? The default constructor call of interface. Now, according to your answer, the interface doesn't have any constructor, so there should not be any super call, right?
Yes, sir. There should not be any super call.
Okay. So anyone else? Any answer? Is there a constructor?
I think in one of the questions there was a constructor on the interface and it didn't throw an error. So we can put constructors. I think.
Okay. And if I do not put a constructor, so is there a default constructor in interface? I mean, you can just tell me your logic. Why if it is, then why if it is, why it is, and if it is not, then why it is not. or you may not be confirm about it. Just tell me what you believe, that it should be there because of this reason, or it should not be there because of this reason. You can tell that.
Sir, I thought that it wouldn't be there because the abstract class can't create objects, and constructors are required for creating objects. That was my logic.
Constructors are required for creating objects, and since it cannot create we cannot create object of an interface, therefore we will not have constructors, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now my question is, let's come to another example, abstract class. Can you create constructor of, constructor of abstract, object of abstract class? Say what is, let us take another name, D. Right? Yeah. So can we have object
No,
of
sir.
abstract class? No, we cannot have. So does
No.
abstract class has constructors?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then why is it the same? If the logic is not creating object, then how you are applying the same logic on interface and saying it is not there, and same logic on abstract class and saying it is there? Any idea? Any argument? Okay, just tell me why we need a constructor of an abstract class if we cannot create object of an abstract class.
Excuse me, sir. May I add something?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so as far as I understand, so interfaces cannot have definitions, right? Body, function body.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas in abstract class we can have. So in abstract classes, what we do is we define something there, and then we can perhaps extend it and make an object out of it later on. But in interfaces, it's just a signature, no body there. So that's why I think interfaces are allowed in abstract classes.
Yeah. See, see exactly. Kind of that only. So the thing is actually, interfaces will not have constructor. Abstract class will have constructor, but the logic is not that since we cannot create object, therefore interface will not have any constructor. That is not correct. Abstract class also we cannot create object, but still it has constructor. The thing is, whenever you are extending a class, the constructor supercall is happening up to the object class, right? So let's, in this example, if I change it to suppose class B extends D. So if I create an object of class B, how many constructor call would happen? First, the constructor of B would be called. Inside the constructor of B, implicitly over here at line number 11, the first thing that would happen is the constructor of B class would be called, because it is the superclass. That would happen implicitly, but if I can also write explicitly by using the super keyword, but otherwise it will happen implicitly to the no argument constructor or default constructor of class D. Right? Is it ending over there only, or is there any other call?
Recurrence will happen, I think. Recursively, it will keep calling the parent class constructor.
So we just ended the hierarchy, right? We do not have any class F which is extending D or whatever. So class D is the superclass. So I'm asking, you created an object of class B, one constructor called happened, then it called the constructor of class D in the chain. Is the call ending here, or is there any other call also happening after this? Question you got right. So after the call of constructor D in an abstract class, is there any other call after this?
No,
after that, actually, B will not be finished until the D is finished, right? First, it will call D, and then after that, B will be completed the allocated memory allocation.
Okay, so you mean that D is getting called, and then memory allocation for the parent class is done, then memory allocation for child class is done, and then we are getting the object, right?
Yeah, I mean.
But I am talking about constructor call only. So is the constructor D the last call in this object creation? Or let's keep it B only. Yeah, in this example. I think we discussed that implicit superclass object. You remember? Right? Object class is the implicit superclass of all classes in Java. So if so, when I'm writing a abstract class D, it actually means it is also extended from the object class.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, there is again a constructor call which will go to the object class. So this chain, this calling of constructor chain should reach the object class, and unless and until it is reaching, you should have a continuous chain of constructor. Otherwise, the memory allocation will not happen properly. How do you think you can use the methods of object class in any class that you define? Equal method, compare method, toString method. How can you do that? Right? There should be some way you are doing that, right? That is happening actually because whenever the constructor of object class is called implicitly in any class you define, right? That memory is allocated depending upon those features, and then only you are able to use those features in an overriding fashion. I mean, if you override it, you can use it. Even you do not override, you can use the implemented implemented functions in object class. So basically, the idea is you will have a continuous chain of constructor call when you are extending classes up to the object class, and therefore in an abstract class we should have a constructor so that this chain continues and it doesn't break in between. Okay, so as to go to the object class. But object creation is not determining the constructor call here. Abstract class also we do not. So this is the first response that everyone gets. Can we create constructor of abstract class? No. Or yes. If no, then why? The answer is we cannot create object. So that is not the correct reason. So this is a common mistake that many people do. Okay. So that was one point. Okay. The second point is that I wanted to discuss is someone asked that whether an interface can be. My screen is visible, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So someone asked that whether we can have no methods in an interface. That is totally correct. We can have no methods in an interface, like in this example only. The A interface has no method. But then what is the use of such an interface? Okay, I'm not going into the terms marker interface and all. Just tell me, if we have no methods in an interface, then what is the use? How can we use it? Any idea you can think of?
Yeah, I mean more than one inheritance done from the interface, then that time polymorphism effect can be.
You don't have any method, right? So
no, I don't have any method. But suppose I mean here B is the class, right? And it is deriving from interface A. And if I create another C from the interface A, so I can define interface reference, right? And by using that, I can use these two class. I mean, polymorphism effect.
Polymorphism, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
yes.
Polymorphism, yeah. So we can have interface, an empty interface with no methods and nothing in it, so that how it is polymorphism, I'm coming to that, but so that we can mark a feature, right? Just hear me out. So we can mark a feature for a class. So let's say I want to group certain classes into a specific group, right? So let's say, I don't know, maybe a common feature which all the classes which implements that interface, I can actually show or allow some functionality to all those classes which implement that interface. How I can do that? That is that dynamic polymorphism will help me. See, if I implement this, just remove this class. What I mean is, so let's say class C, okay, and class B are the two classes, and both of them implements A. A is a the idea is whenever you are implements. Okay, so the idea is whenever I do this, and suppose I have some methods over here, some methods defined over here, and also class B has its own methods defined over here. Right? Now what I do is I can define a reference variable of the interface type. Notice this point, of the interface type, and then I can store the objects. So whatever object I want to store, new A can, sorry, new C can also be done, and I can also do reference to equal to new B. This is also possible. So this is dynamic polymorphism. Now see, at runtime, I don't know which classes object is getting created. Suppose I have a program, right, in which I don't know whether C classes object would be created or B classes object would be created. So I write, suppose something like, if some condition, right, you create an object of B class, maybe this line. Okay, so let's say new B I want to do, and else I want to do new C. This is my idea. Now at this level in this program, I mean in line number 22, I want the methods of B and C to be called polymorphically automatically at runtime depending upon the version of object it is there. So I mean, if it is a B type object, then the methods corresponding to B should be called. If it is a C type object, then the methods corresponding to C should be called. So for that, I want to group B and C into some common bucket where I can store both B object and C object, right? That is what this interface definition is providing. Okay. You can store this new C and new B both in the A class reference, sorry, A interface reference variable, and use it for dynamic polymorphism at runtime. So what are you trying to do? You're trying to mark the classes which implement this interface with some specific property, or maybe a grouping that these classes which implement this interface, these properties they would satisfy, something like that. Okay, so this is the idea of marker interface, but this is not exactly the thing of marker interface. We will come to marker interface later again, okay, in serialization and cloning and all those things. But I mean, the basic idea of interface is you can, I think in slides, sir mentioned it using the term generic functionality. If you see the lectures in interfaces slide where sir has taught, he mentioned the lecture title as generic functionality using interface. So basically you are generalizing the bucket which would store the class object with which you can use dynamic polymorphism to call the functionality you want with respect to that particular version. Okay, so that is one feature of interface that you can use.
So, sir,
Yeah.
my name like Viral here, and I have raised that question particular.
Yeah.
Can we? Yeah. So now the question is, what I understood first of all is in blank interface can be utilized for the dynamic grouping purpose or the dynamic polymorphism. But won't that be achieved instead of using interface, just implementing the default object class that we have? I mean, isn't that they're already there? And cannot we probably utilize that?
See, the problem with object class is it is a super class of all classes. So whenever that Arup sir also told you that I want to form groups, I don't want to form a universe of discourse, we call it. I don't know. Universe of discourse means the whole thing is in the domain. I mean, there is only one group. Right? So we don't want to form a universal group. We want to form subgroups. So let's say, let's make this thing.
Okay, so probably, yeah, interface will provide us one more step of that layer, one layer using which we can identify a group basically.
Exactly. So I want this thing to happen. Interface F, right? So B and C implements A and E implements F. Now you have two groups. One is A group, one is F group. A group has two class, F group has one class.
Okay.
So you can achieve the functionality depending upon them.
Right.
Right. So interface, these kind of interface and abstract classes would help you great in runtime. I mean, when runtime means you don't know what kind of object is stored in the reference variable. That is the beauty of polymorphism, right? I don't know which type of object is stored, but I want to call the proper version of the method, right? So that interfaces would help you. So that is the idea of interface.
So
And-
when we are calling from the mobile, we can call landline and mobile both, right?
Exactly.
But in telephone exchange, these two different number has two different protocols. The mobile has a different protocols and landline has a different protocol. Or maybe if I take the mobile of CDMA or something like that,
Yeah.
show different protocols. So whenever I'm calling the with that format, that what type of calling will be there, according to that I can pass
Simply
the
override.
call. Yeah, pass the call into the particular type of object. I mean,
Exactly.
telephone or mobiles or CDMA mobiles or whatever we are using. I mean,
Yeah, whether it is CDMA or whether it is GSM, you don't have to worry that the object
Yeah.
type could call depending upon the overriding that you are doing, right? So that is the
Yes,
idea, exactly.
yes.
Yeah, that is the idea. Okay, so sorry, I don't know whether it is correct to say GSM, but I heard that, that's why I said so.
No,
I don't-
actually, I worked in it. So,
No, is it correct context? So can we say CDMA?
I mean, we can, yeah, we can do it. I mean,
We can do
they're separate protocols. So, I mean, based on that, we can separate mobile, CDMA, mobile, and GSM or like that.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, but the idea is that only.
Yeah, that kind of.
Yeah, fine. So that is the second thing. One thing. Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
do have one question related to this. So in marker interfaces, we generally don't kind of put any method declaration, right? Because what happens if later on, if I were to put something here, and then I have to necessarily update all the classes, those classes which implement that particular interface.
Yeah.
And so if it is designated for just for marking, then we should not ideally put anything here, right?
Put any method, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that is what I was. And in case, is there anything, I mean, like anything else that we would like to have there, then we should declare another interface and not use that one.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so that is exactly also the reason why we got default method in normal interface, not marker or anything, but normal interfaces. We introduce the default method for that same reason. I think we discussed that in one session. Right?
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So that you do not have to implement all the methods which you don't want. So you have the default. If you want, you use. If you don't want, you may not use anything. Okay. Yeah. Now another thing is, yeah. So suppose I have a method over here, void display. This is a simple thing, but I think many of the first timers may get this error. So in this class, what if I forget about this test class? Display interface A implements A. Okay, so in this class, I want to override the display method. So let's override void display and then whatever system.out.println. Yeah. So can you tell me why is this error coming?
Sir, access specifier.
Yeah, what is the issue with specifier, access specifier?
Sir, we are not defined whether it is public or.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
class,
exactly.
class. Yeah, we need to mention. Otherwise, it will be private.
Default, not
Default.
private. Yeah. So yeah, that is the issue. So in interface, if you do not write explicitly, then implicitly also it means that these methods are public abstract. That is by default. We can write it or we may not write it. But even if we do not write it, then implicitly it means public abstract. Okay. So this thing. Now, if this is public abstract, the first rule of overriding is that you cannot reduce the access specifier. So reduce means, I mean, reduce the accessibility. So if it is public in the superclass, you cannot reduce it to anything else, right? But suppose it is private in the if it is private, it would not be inherited. But anyways, suppose let's say if it is default in the superclass, right? If it is default in the superclass, then when you are overriding, you can make it public. So you can increase the, I mean, you can decrease the restriction, but you cannot increase the restriction of use. So here in interface, since everything is implicitly public, even if you do not write, right? So when we try to override the same method in the class, if we do not write anything, that means it is implicitly default. The implicit type of a method in interface is public, whereas in class it is default. But default is more restricted. Therefore, it is giving error. So when you are overriding a method which is in interface, then you must always make it explicitly public. Okay, you cannot reduce the access hierarchy, access modifier. Another thing is why defaults method were added. I discussed, I think, one day. Hope that is clear. Okay, now we will go to inner class and discuss some code. So before going to inner classes and all, so let's come back to the question that Mr. Oshim was also answering at that time. Like, what is the implementation of inner classes? Why are we going into inner classes? That topic. See, so first of all, I would like to mention one thing. So, is a relationship was clear, right? What is a relationship? Can someone tell me?
Yeah, I mean that will be the inherited from the superclass.
Yeah, and why we are telling it is a?
Because it is same type, right? I mean, suppose a student is a person, right?
Yeah. So that's English statement should make sense according to the OOPS program that you are writing. You will only inherit a class. I mean, when you think of real life designing, then you will only make an inheritance when it is satisfying is a relationship. Otherwise, you should not. So for explanation of syntactical thing, we do class A extends class B, but logically you should always extend or inherit from a superclass if and only if you can make the English sentence like subclass is a superclass. In place of subclass, you put the name of the subclass. In place of superclass, you put the name of the superclass. If this sentence, English sentence, is making sense, then only you can inherit. Do inheritance. That's why we call that is a relationship. Okay. Now, this is something, inner class is something which we call has a relationship. That you have something. It's called has a relationship. Has a relationship. But there are two types of has a relationship. Okay. And why we call it has a, we'll come to that. We will simply put the terms again and check why it is has. The first type would be a composition type. We will discuss this thing. I mean, you already have learned this thing, but do not know that this is how it is called. And the second is aggregation type. Okay. Basically, broadly speaking, yeah, these are the types. Now, let's see a code example. So you have a class outer. Let's not take it outer. So you have a class, say, human. Fine. Actually, I should not take human because of a reason. Just a second. So let's say class customer. Now this customer means bank customer. Okay, let's make it bank customer. Okay, so bank customer. Right. Now inside this I am defining an inner class. Say class accounts. Fine. Yeah, account is fine. Fine. All methods and all, we will come to that later. But see, can you tell me, is this statement correct?
No, it is probably has.
It is not correct, right?
No.
So, but this is correct. The account, sorry, not account. Erase this thing.
Customer has account.
Opposite way, customer has account. Has account. Okay. So this is a correct statement. So how we implement this feature in OOPS programming? That is the, I mean, inner class is the answer for this question. When you have to implement something which is not exactly the thing, but it is a property of that thing, right? So customer has an account, or maybe he has many accounts, whatever. So that whenever you are doing this, then you have to make the inner classes. That is the idea. Fine. Syntactical things we will discuss, but that is the basic idea, and that's why we call these inner classes as has a relationship. Now there can be two possible has a relationship, right? What do we mean by two possible relationships? So let's take one case, a heart. Now I will go to the classic examples. Then we will discuss this thing. So see, a heart and human, right? A human body and a heart. So a heart is not a human and neither a human is a heart, but a human body has a heart. So the human would be a superclass, fine, and heart would be the subclass. Sorry, not subclass, inner class. So this is fine. But there is another way to have this feature, right? So what about this thing? Class human. Right? What I do is I have another class over here, which is heart. Right? The human class ends over here. What I do is I simply define heart obj as a data member of the human class, and then I have all the methods and all whatever. This is also right.
Yeah, but only two things are the difference, because heart class will not be accessible outside anywhere. But in the second case, heart class can be used with the other animals or something like that.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. See, the idea is both of them has a relationship, but the difference between the idea of it is why it is has a, you got it right. So you have an object of heart class in the human class, and you can see whenever you define an object of human class. So let's say whenever you are defining an object of human class, so say human O equal to new human, right? And then what you do is O dot obj is a data member of human. Then you call all the methods of heart class, whatever. Right? So this is again a has a relationship. But the difference between these two is, as Mr. Asim also pointed out, that if the heart class is an external entity, that is, it is not inside the human class, then I can also create a heart object like this. So let's say heart O equal to new heart. So this is a valid statement. Fine. That means you can create in this case. So this is in this case. Right? So that means you can create a heart even without creating a human body. That is fine. But in this case, you cannot create an object of heart class without creating a human body. Why? Because the syntax over here is, since it's a nested class, right? It's inner class. So you have to make an object of outer class in order to create an object of the inner class. So the syntax over here would be human dot heart, which is the superclass name. This is the child class name, right? Then you define the object. What is the object type? The reference obj equal to, again you have to write new, then the superclass name, fine, and then you can define the child class. One thing to point is, yeah, so this is this case. One thing to point is, suppose you already have a human object out here, right? Human O equal to new human. If you have an object out here, then you can just write, change this thing with O. That is allowed. O dot new. You are just creating an object, right? So that is fine. But the idea is you have to create an object of the human class, this O object or whatever, this new human object, in order to create an object of the heart class. That is the idea. In order to create an object of the heart class, you have to have an object of the outer class, this outer class object. Okay. So this feature is yeah, Afnan, I will come to you just a second. So this feature is what we call composition. That is, I cannot allow a heart. So let us, for the sake of example, let us take that here we are only considering human beings, right? No other animals are there in the world, just human beings. So if in a world where only human beings are there and a human body has a part called heart, then having a heart class outside, like in this example, is wrong, because in this case you are able to create a heart object even without defining a human object. In case 2, you can create a heart object without defining a human object, which is incorrect, because a heart cannot exist without a human body, assuming there are only humans in the world, right? There are no other animals. So therefore, in that kind of situation where you have to have a object existing only when the outer class object is present, right? So then you have to do this pattern, which is composition, and this is called aggregation. Or I mean, there is a subtle difference between aggregation and association, these two things, but let us call it aggregation. Okay, so both of them has a relation, right? Human has a heart. In both of the case, we will write, but there are two ways of implementing them depending upon the existence of the inner class. Okay, fine. So is the basic idea clear? When you have to take which design when in a real life scenario, or is it? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Apnan, you can go ahead.
Yes, sir. So I do have a related question related to this. So if the inner class is static, then we can also access that without having this new operator, is it?
Yeah, exactly. But static inner classes are, I mean, I don't know whether we should discuss that, but it has some good features, but we will not go into those things now.
All right, sir. No problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but your idea is okay. Yeah, we have to define the reference variable according to the outer class object, but we can access the method directly. That is fine by the class. You do not have to define an object. Okay. So yeah, so basically this idea is clear, right? What is composition? What is aggregation? So when you see a real life problem, try to map it in terms of whether it is a inheritance or whether it is a composition or aggregation. I mean, yeah. So this kind of things would be there. Okay. Now, one thing that I wanted to discuss is, give me a minute. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So one important point is, see. So when you have, sorry. Yeah. So when you have a, let me do it in ID only, that would be better. Yeah, here. If I have a class A, as a, let's take human only, or maybe not human, maybe bank. Yeah. So if I have a class bank and I define another class account in it, right? So one thing is, when I create an object of bank class, bank A equal to new bank, fine. When I create an object of bank class, and then I use this object to create other account class, because it is has a relationship and also composition, so I have to have a bank object. So what I do is bank dot account acc1 equal to new. First I need to have the object a dot new account. Okay. Now what I do is, see what's happening over here. You are creating two accounts for the same bank object, right? Try to think it that only one bank object is there, using which you are creating two accounts. That means you are creating two different objects of the inner class for a single object of the outer class, and this will be mapped. Account 1 and account 2 is mapped to only this A object. Only this A object. Suppose if I have another object of class bank called B object, it will be a different one. I mean, many of you have doubt regarding this objects property and all. That's why I'm explicitly mentioning this. So in this design, okay, So this is very important. So you can have multiple inner class object with mapped to a single outer class object. Okay. So whenever that outer class is actually referring, that means it can refer to any of this object. I mean, you can use those objects inner class, right? So basically an outer class object can have multiple inner class objects, but an inner class object is always mapped to the single outer class object with which it is created. And that is also logical, right? I mean, an account cannot be present in multiple banks. So if you are having something, then that particular item should be mapped to you itself. It should not be mapped to something other, or something more than you also, right? So that is incorrect. So that is this feature, how it is implemented. Okay. Achha, one more point is that when you have inner class, it has access to all the member of the outer class. So I can refer to private index inside this class. You can write x equal to 9. Okay. Is this error? Variable declaration.
Sir, data type.
What?
Sir, data type, whether it is integer or.
But type is something, I don't want to do that, right? I want something else. I don't want to make a new variable. So this is exactly we are creating a new variable. What I want to say is we can access the private members of the outer class. That is allowed. Let me just check it. So if I have a private method, private p, say void display, whatever.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So you are accessing it outside of any function body, right? So I think that is why. Should be static if you want to access it outside. You're not accessing it inside a constructor or another method, right? So directly accessing it inside a class means you want to access it statically. So it should be static. I think so.
But ideally, okay, just a second.
Because there's no instance, right?
No. Ideally, it should be mapped to the single object, right? So just a second. I think it is not able to map it to the private void display class account. What is this? Syntax error. Class body to complete class declaration.
Sir, I also think display should be invoked in some constructor or some method.
Okay, let me just check that. But what is this thing? This is the bank class, right? Yeah. This is the display method. If I add, okay, so if I write bank dot this, that means actually the bank classes object. But the error is not coming in this line, rather it is coming on the outer line. Syntax error token expected after this token. Okay, I have to check this thing out.
Sir, I think it's because you are leaving the display class empty.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I am not doing it inside a method, right? You were saying that. I was thinking about this method. Sorry. This is like data member. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes,
What?
yes.
Okay, I was thinking something else. Yeah, fine. So basically, yeah, this thing is I want to access the private method of the outer class. This is the problem of coding C++ and Java together. Okay. Yeah. In this method, I am writing the I'm trying to access the outer class member, so that is allowed even if it is private. So if I write x equal to whatever 56, right, then it is not an incorrect statement. You can use that, right? So although it is a different class, so member function can use private members, right? That is okay in a class, but although it is a different class, still it is allowed. Yeah, and also you can call the display method even if it is private, no issues. But the thing is, now you see why it is important that you have multiple inner class object mapped to a single outer class object. Although it is implicit, but that's what is important, because when you are calling this display method, it should be called for that particular object with which the inner class object has been created. That particular outer class object to which the display method would be bounded for this particular inner class object. Okay, yeah, so that is important. Acha. Another important thing is the inner class properties would not be accessible. So let's take the fun method itself, which is a property of the inner class. You will not be able to access that from the outer class directly. I mean, although it is like a member, the class account is a member of class bank, and we can always call the members directly, right? But here you will not be able to do that because you need an object. Otherwise, the very idea of encapsulation is getting lost.
Here actually the account class is a member to the bank class. That's why it can access all the member of the banks.
Exactly.
But reverse is not true.
Reverse is not true. And why it can, again coming back to the same idea, why the reverse is not true? Because if it is allowed to directly call any property of account class, then for which inner class object we are calling? That is not resolved, right? You can have multiple inner class object for the one outer class object. So for which class you are trying to call, that is not resolved. So that's why you need to have an object. So if I want to call the fun method over here, then what I have to do is in the display method. So let's say in the display method, I want to call the fun method. What I have to do is I have to create an object of account class. So maybe new account, then write dot fun, right? Yeah. So this is how you have to access. So accessing inner class functions or data members, you have to have an object. The reason is that although obviously it is implicit because it is a member, but also the reason is that you can have multiple inner class objects, right? That's why you have to define the object explicitly. Yeah, Afnan, go ahead.
And one more thing that if I use the aggregation for the account class, then account class cannot have access the bank functions or attributes.
Yeah, aggregation means you are defining it outside.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
account classes.
Yeah, so that is not a proper design. Although still it has a relationship. Can you catch up? Do you know? The first thing that you all learned in Java, that is also an aggregation, and that is system.out.println.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We discussed that out is a object of print stream class, which is defined in the system class as a static variable. Right? So out is an object of one class which is defined in another class as a member, and that's how you group things. So Kumar initially in the first, I don't know, maybe first or second session, he asked that how we are representing school and each class, how we can group things together. So that's how you do by using inner classes. There are two ways of grouping things. One, the inner class entity may exist outside the outer class also. Then you do the aggregation type. And if it cannot exist, then you do composition type. So ideally, if you are making a school type of design here, what you will do is you will make a school, right? Inside this you will define a classes, maybe standards 1 2 3 4 whatever, right? So that is a one way. In this situation, the standards cannot exist outside the school, but if you want to implement in the other way, then you can also have a class over here, class standards, right? And you can simply ignore this and define a reference of the standard class as a member of the outer class. Ignore the errors now. I have not defined anything properly. That's why it's coming. Yeah, it's standards, by the way. Yeah. So that is also has a relation. Two ways of having things. Okay. So now the next thing is the basic idea of inner class and has is done. So we will now come to the private thing. the private inner classes, where we want to restrict the use of the inner classes only within the outer class, and it will not be shown outside. So just mentioning one thing, those of you read the slides properly and try to go through the code of the that sir has explained. This is what you do in callback. Isn't it? We will discuss it. We will discuss that. But this is basically what you do in callback. In an aggregation, this is the skeleton of your code. Now these inner classes are private on all. We will come to that. And this is what you do in iterator. There are basically two skeletons for these inner classes, right? Composition and aggregation. Now in sir's teaching, sir is teaching by using the composition pattern for iterator and the aggregation pattern for callback. So if you see the code of practice question that Anand sir just explained you, callback was happening, and what we were doing basically is, let me just bring that up, just a second. Practice question. This was the question, right? Is it visible? Last question?
Yes.
Okay. See, private employee inside the timer class. Employee is a object defined outside. Sorry, class defined outside, and we are having that as a relationship inside the timer class, so that we can call the method of the timer class. Sorry, employee class. This e.notification1 and e.notification2. These two are methods of the employee class. We want to call them, and that's why we are defining an object of the employee class E inside the timer class, right? So yeah, so that is how it's basically working. So this is callback. We will come to that later maybe. But you see that this is the basic pattern of implementing callback. And in iterator also, sir has used this inner class, where the inner iterator was returning a iterator type object to the data structure that which you are defining, right? And then you can do the has next and get next to do. So basically these two are the functionalities that has been discussed in this week using these two different design patterns. Now moving into, but we did it using private class. The only difference between iterators and callback and whatever we discussed in this week, sir has taught us, is using private classes, right? Iterators is also done using private classes, I think. Yeah. So we will go to the private class thing now. But before going into private class, we will discuss a simple skeleton code of private class. Then we will go to the exact code.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
One small question. So in the previous definition that you had, can you please show that again? No, not this one. Actually, in this IDE itself.
Okay.
Yeah, the subclass definition that you had. If you could show that again. Yeah. So a simple question is that in an inner class, like you had, I think even before that, initially that was there, right? AB, I think.
Just a second. It is right, the inner class.
Yeah, sort of like that. Basically, my question is that if the inner class also has the same method having the same signature as the another method which is same in the parent class also, so which method would be called? Would it be of the inner class or would it be of the parent class? That is my question.
Okay, so that you are totally using a different object to call the methods of inner class, right? So whichever object type you are using, that method would be called. So let's take, yeah.
Yeah, if you could show that as an example, it would be better. Yeah. And there itself in class B, the inner one, if you define another method by some other name and then you call display, just display, without specifying this or anything, then what would be called? That is my question.
Oh, here, right? In
yeah, here itself. Yeah, exactly.
Then display would, then inner class,
Okay, inner class would be preferred, like.
Yeah, that is yeah. So you know that always you go through the local scoping, right? That access chain in app activation step.
Okay, yeah. So you start with like if search here in the inner class itself, if it is not there, then only will go up. in the
Always.
hierarchy. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That is what my question was.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, so this is not only for variables, sorry, not only for function, but also for variables and all. You will always see the local scope, and then you will go one by one, going outside. Okay.
All right.
And
Makes sense.
yeah. So here it is display only, but if you over here in the outer class, is it outer class? Yeah, in the outer class, if you want to call the inner class, then you are explicitly making an object, right? So there is no question of the outer class display to be called.
Yes, yes, that is clear. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the private class example. This is the skeleton of all private static classes. So please understand this properly. And if any one of you have doubt in the working of the iterator or the what was the name, callback, yeah, so this would be clear. So this is the basic structure of accessing a private inner class. So let us define a class outer. Okay, and I define a private inner class. Acha, why are we defining inner class? Inner class has, inner class is something that outer class has, right? A bank has an account, right? Something like that. But we are defining private only when we are trying to hide the details of implementation. So let's take a login. So let's take this, let's name this as login is the outer class, and let's say inner class is a key generator. Key generator class. Yeah. So a key generator class. Now I don't want to share the details of key generator with the outer interface log, means outer scope login, or even with the outer of the class in the main method and all. I don't want to share the key generators anywhere, right? So in that kind of scenarios, I want to use the private inner class so that no object of the inner class could be created. So let's try to create an object of the inner class like we did earlier. What we did, we defined the outer class name, which is login. Then we wrote the inner class of name, which is key generator. Then we name the object and then write equal to new, right? And dot new key generator. So this was the basic syntax. But you see there is an error coming because key generator, it will not be resolved. Key generator is not visible because it is private. So you cannot create an object of key generator, right? Even using an object of the outer class if it is private, because we want to hide the implementation details. Okay. Then how to access this? So let's say I have a method called public void display inside the key generator, right? So how can I access this method? If I am not able to create an object at all, then how can I access this method? You all have gone through the code of callback, iterators, everything. So my simple question is, tell me a way to access this method. You can make any changes in the code you want, not modifying the private word itself. Yeah, other than that.
Via creating another public class within login and
private class.
So in class login, we create another public class referring to the display of private class key generator.
We define another public class inside login. Okay.
Inside login.
Class say temporary. Okay. Then
inside login. This is probably outside.
No, this is inside login only. This is outside key generator.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And here we access the display of private class key generator.
No, yeah. So display of private class key generator by defining an object, right? You have to define an object because it is inner class.
Yes,
yeah. So yeah, if you are defining object over here, so let me just do that and show what's happening.
No, I can also declare the private class object in the login, right?
You can also.
I can also create a member of the key generator object in the login class.
Yeah. So inside the login class, you can do anything you want if as long as you are creating an object of key generator. But that is not the idea. My idea is these classes and interfaces are already defined, right? This functionality has been defined, and you are a new programmer in the company. All you have to do is you have to make an implementation how to access these methods which has been defined, and this is the safe part of the code. Assume. I mean, we have not modified it properly, so assume that this is the safe part that will not be handled to you. You are only having the access to this main method. So that is the idea, right? I mean, if you change the blueprint itself, then everything will change. So I'm not allowed to change the blueprint, but I have to access this inside main method. What changes in the blueprint actually should have been made to make this happen? How can
I got it. I mean, if I log in, I mean, class login has a public member, and in which I can create the key generator object and call the display function.
Okay, great.
That will automatically follow it.
Okay, so I'm having a public member. Public, let's say return whatever.
No, return type is
return key gen. No,
yeah,
I'm just
return key generator.
And then the return type would be key generator. See, my idea is I want to access the key generator functionality outside, I mean, in the main method. So in order to do that, how can I do that? Since I cannot create an object of key generator inside main method, I cannot access it directly. So the way to deal with this, I try to make a public method inside this class, login class. And what I would try to do is I would try to make it, here we can create key generator object, that is allowed because it is inside class, right? So here I would create an object and pass it outside. That is my idea. Outside object creation is not allowed. Inside it is allowed. Let's create inside and pass it outside. Okay. So a kind of workaround, but let's see what happens. So return keygen, and I would directly return new key generator.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So is it the same kind of pattern that we also use for singleton classes, right? So instance we return, but the actual instance no one else can create. So if once it is created, no one else can actually create it, but there is a method with which you can access it from outside.
Yeah, the only difference is here we are not doing singleton.
Yeah, exactly. So I understand it's kind of similar. So
Got
that
it.
is
Got it. Basically, you are restricting the condition of object creation. Here also, there also. That is common. You are right in that way.
So in case of mutator also we do it, right?
What?
In case of mutator, we do that way.
Mutator means mutator. Which mutator?
Mutator means like editing the already available variable which is private somewhere, updating that.
Okay. So you try to return an object type and then
That is the function name, right? Actually,
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I am trying to return a key generator object, and let's hope that now I got the object reference and I would be able to access display. But don't you think this is violating the encapsulation? I mean, the very intention of having something private is that I will not allow it to access inside main.
No, still, I mean, it's not that exactly, because you have to use that functions with, and then you have to use the dot. I mean, we have to use the dot. No?
Okay, let's see. Let's see. I create a login object, login obj equal to new login. What I do is obj dot.
Let's see. I mean, what
fun?
happened.
Oh no, sir, not fun. What is that? Return keygen. It is not coming. Obj dot re. Yeah. So I create an object.
Yeah.
Now what to do? Dot, right?
It is coming in the list. Let's see. But it is giving error.
What is happening? You are returning object you are trying to. So see, this workaround would not work. Java has been determined in that manner. If you are simply inside the class, you can create object.
No, actually, what I thought, I mean, in keygen.
You thought correct, and that is actually the solution. But there has to be something else also. Some changes has to be made, right?
You have to implement an interface and then.
Why?
so that that interface method can be implemented by keygen.
Okay.
And we know that when we are calling when we are returning when return keygen return type will be that interface type, because that's the super type, right?
Yeah.
So that then when we call it, we know that such and such method exists on that interface.
Exactly. Exactly. See, what's happening over here is, why is this line not aligned? Let's, whenever we are calling the display method, let's see this. When you are calling the display method, what do you think? What is the type which is referred for calling display? Is it login or is it key generator? Although we are returning the object of, yeah, we are returning the object of key generator. That is fine. That is fine. But when we are calling display method, what happens? Let's discuss it in this way. So suppose we have two classes. I mean one super class and one child class. Right? So this is the pattern. So if I have class A and then I have class B extends A, and inside the main method, what I try to do is I define A O1 equal to new A and A O2 equal to new B, right? And I try to call a method which is only there in B class but not in A class using O1. O1 dot fun. Okay. What is the output over here?
No, for this case, it will not be. I mean, it is a compilation error.
It is
Because,
compilation error.
Yeah. Super must have that function. That's why I'm trying to override in the class B.
Okay. And what happens if I use O2?
O2 is for same, right? I mean,
yeah, O2 is still type.
O2 would execute fun, right? Or would it not execute?
No, it won't execute. It will be
it won't, because both are I mean, O2 is a type reference, right?
Exactly, that's the point. So when you are not override, now let me make just one change, fun. Now it would execute. Now it would execute according to the object type, which is B. So the child class would be called. Yeah, if you do the implementation. So in this situation, O2.fun will execute the B classes fun method because O2 is storing B classes object.
Because dynamic dispatching will be happen when it is running.
Exactly, it is happening in the runtime. Otherwise, if we are not overriding fun, I mean, if it is not in A class and we are still trying O2.fun, which is using B object, but still it will not use this B object. It will only take the A object because this is happening at compile time, because you have not overridden fun. Only when the methods you override, they will be referenced via the object type. All methods which you do not override, they will be referenced by the reference type, not the object type. So that's why this line will give error in this situation, because it will not find any fun method inside class A. And O2 is basically class A's reference. It will not see what is there because in the object, because you have not overridden fun method. So if that is the idea, then what is the type which is calling display method? Are you doing overriding anywhere? You are not doing. You are simply making a function and trying to call it using a private an object, right? But although that object is returning over here, this is basically a reference call which would be referred, which would be resolved using the compile time, not in the runtime, because there is no overriding. Unless and until a component of overriding is happening, it will not go to runtime and it will try to map the version to be called at compile time. But when it tries to do that in compile time, it says it is a private, so I cannot access. It's a property of private class, right? There is no display method. I mean, if you see the error, let's check this out. Key generator is not visible. It is not able to see anything because there is no key generator display method defined for login class. So what you have to do, you have to somehow implement overriding so that it goes to runtime and then it finds the object of key generator, which is returned by this method. And then once you get the object at runtime, you will be able to call it the proper display method of inner class by overriding. I mean, yeah, you can reference that. So all you have to do, you have to implement a component of overriding in this situation, and we will do simply that. That's why we are making an interface. You can do it using abstract class also. Either of them would satisfy. Only you have to implement overriding. That's what is necessary to make this access happen. So interface a private key class generator implements say, and I need to have the display method over here. Is void, right? Yeah, yes. Fine. So I implemented the interface A and I have the display method overridden. Okay. My object is ready. Then I'm calling the new generator and it is returning me the object type which I am trying to dot display. Yeah.
So line 12 should return type should be interface A, right? Line 12.
Line 12. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So that was in the previous code. Now we have this interface. So we'll do this dynamic dispatching. And let's run it. Let's say we'll see if you can call the display method private inner class. Okay. So the basic idea was overriding. That's it. I mean, you made a.
So in line number 8, the access modifier that we have public there. So does it have any effect? Like after all, we are using the interfaces display signature, right? So does the line number 8 access modifier have any effect on the overall?
Exactly. Will it override if I change it private? Because it is interface. What is default in interface? It is public.
Yeah,
it has to be public.
Cannot be exactly. We cannot restrict it further. So
let's try one thing.
Already
I don't know.
public.
Yeah, so that is okay, but let's try it with abstract class. And what I would do is I would make it default and make it public in the next place. I think it should accept that. It would work. Got the point I'm telling? So interface, it is public by default. Abstract class, it is not public. So it would be void by default. So let's do that.
Default, yeah, exactly.
So let's do that and let's make it public. I think it should work. Oh.
Yeah, implements will be extends, right?
Yeah, this will be extends. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it is working. See, because this is default type, right? In class A, this is default. And here I am not increasing the restriction, but decreasing the restriction.
Yes, all right. Yeah, it's clear.
That is right.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you understand this basic structure or pattern or whatever, the skeleton, this is what you are doing in. Let me just pull up the slides and show you the syntax. So which one was callback and iterator, right? You were saying about iterator. Mr.
Yeah.
Rashim was saying about iterator. See, let's go to the last where the whole code is there. Yeah, this is the main. Yeah, see this thing. Public class iterator. You are defining having a private class of iterator type, iter type, which is implementing an iterator interface, and you are simply returning an object, right? The only thing is the iterator interface must have the method which you are trying to use in the private class. So what are the private class method over here? Should I make it a little big? Okay. What are the private class method over here? Has next and get next. So the only idea is we will put has next and get next definition in the, sorry, not definition, declaration in the interface iterator. Let's go to the interface iterator and check. Is the definition given? Don't know. Yeah, has next and get next. Okay, I will go to the code Yeah, I will go to the code over at the last. I think you should all be able to relate it directly with the example that we did, right? Is it okay? Is it, I mean, any doubt, please ask. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
actually, I'm in a mute, so that's why the.
we're
Okay.
trying to digest.
Yeah, please go ahead. See,
Yeah,
yeah, if
when
you
I'm
want,
calling.
yeah, if you want, I can go through it. See, what are the types? Let's make a half screen and just directly compare. The only difference over here is we are changing the variable name, nothing else. The code that we discussed, this is clear, right? Any doubt?
No, this one is clear to me.
Let me just change this to interface only. Interface A, and what was that? Void display. I took only one method. Sir has implemented a feature, so it should be having some meaningful methods. Implement. So this is your idea. This is the code that we discussed, and yeah. Read it, take your time, and then ask. Yeah, it's fine. Is it okay, or should I go through it?
Yeah, I mean the get iterator. I mean has next function. I mean it has any.
That is, sir has not defined that implementation, but it has implementation. Right? So get iterator. See the get iterator over here. What happened?
No, it's just move
Yeah.
to the left.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
get iterator.
actually here iterator it equal to new iter, right? So here returning it. Now the get has next. It will move one by one, right? So this is a reference. It's a single object, right?
Yeah. That would happen inside the, I mean, sir has not given the description of has next, right? So once you go inside that, then you have to operate on the node. So that is happening inside the implementation of has next on the node position that you are changing. Sir has given the has next implementation.
No.
If it is, yeah, so that's the abstraction that we are doing. But the basic idea over here is you have a data structure and you do not want to show all the details of how the iterator is working. You just want to have a package function called hasNext and the package function called getNext. And you don't want to show the implementation. So what you are doing is just returning an iterator, and I tell you that use this iterator to call hasNext and getNext to search through the data structure or traverse through the data structure. So that is the basic idea. So it is not a proper code because this code would be much longer. This is the idea how you implement the module plan, how you implement that feature. Okay. So here hasNext and getNext is simply like display. In our code, that display method is there, so that is similar. And yeah, all other features are same, nothing else. Just the implementation of hasNext and getNext has to do with the node position and all that that is a level of abstraction that we are doing now.
Okay, node position is another variable which is counting the current node position.
Yeah, Afnan, if you have any doubt, you can go ahead.
Yes, sir. One simple small question is that the interface that we have defined in the code that we have written in the IDE and the right side. So can the interface A be also be inside the login class? Like, is it necessary to define it outside it?
Interface outside the class, sorry, inside the class.
Oh, like, okay. So is it not possible to have it?
I don't know syntactically whether it is allowed, but I don't know. Let us see.
Okay, I was just
Okay, it is allowed.
wondering. Yeah, it is allowed, right? So
It is
okay,
allowed.
that because I mean, like outside of login, as far as this code is concerned, it is not used. So I thought maybe it is better to put it inside the login class itself, right?
Yeah.
That is why.
Yeah, it's allowed. I'm sure.
Yes, it seems it is working. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
you
Thank
can
you.
do that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so and Mr. Ashim, I think has next and get next is something left to the abstraction of the implementation. I mean, how you want to do it, I don't know. It is the implementation. No. So yeah, so that will happen basically by using this node position and all. Okay. The basic idea was that you want to have an iterator whose details you don't want to publish outside. Only two package method that you are trying to sell outside is has next and get next. So use this to iterate to the data structure. Now how you can implement this? So iterator is just an example of this thing. Basically, this is like the private class which you do not want to publish outside, but how to use that to implement the thing, how to use that outside the class and in the main method. So that is the basic idea. So this is the skeleton idea of the feature.
Yeah. I mean, these things and these things have the same implementer. Get iterator is returning the iterator. I mean, and iterator is the interface. I mean, public interface, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That I
Same
got
thing.
it. I mean, if there is no problem.
Okay. So that was, I mean, the basic things, iterator and callback and all. Now, I said that, what is that scratch pad? Yeah. So I said that callback is something where we are defining a object of the class as a member of another class, right? So that's how the callback is implemented. So if you see a callback method, so let's again come back to the slide. So the aggregation pattern, right? Class human is there, class heart is there. You're defining a heart object inside human. That's it. But there is one difference in callback. I would just tell that, and then we will end the session for today. So that difference is, see, so let's go to the ID. So if I have a class A and then I define a B classes object, right, over here as a member, right? If I do that, and let's say I want to call let's define a function void fun, and inside this I want to call obj dot fine. So this is what I want to do. Now see, in order to implement callback, what I need over here is something. Once I come to fun2, right, once I come over here, I need something to go back to A, right? That would be the loop, that would be the calling back. So in order to do that, if I do not have a static method, right, since we are not dealing with static, we are doing with object specific implementations. So we need to have an object of a class. That is the syntax. So that's why we are defining an object in order to go back to that method. So let's define obj2, right? And here I do whatever required. Okay, and then I'm going back to my fun method. Or maybe some other method also I can go. That depends on your implementation, whether you can whether you want to go to some other method in A or that's fun3. So that depends on your implementation, whether you want to go to fun or fun3. But the idea is we are calling it back when only you are going to the class which called you. So here A class called the B classes method. Now we will go back to A class after finishing what was required. Fine. So I will write obj dot, let's take fun only obj2 dot fun. But there is one problem, and that is actually the very important point of using callbacks. My question is, this call which is happening at line number 17, is it associated with the object that you sent the first time in the B class? Your idea of callback is, so let me just rename this to give you the idea. So let's say this is a producer class and this is a consumer class, right? Now what happens is, let's say this method is produce method, this method is eat method, right? So once the producer class produces something, right, it will call the eat method to eat that thing. Now in consumer class, the consumer will eat that thing, I mean do the job, whatever, eat the thing, and once it has finished eating, then it will again call back the, so this is produce, right? Then it will again call back produce that, okay, I have finished eating, send me the new thing, I mean create new thing and then again send that to me. Okay, so that is the basic idea. These errors are coming because of this thing, right? Consumer and all that. Consumer, producer. Fine. So this is the basic structure of a callback, that the consumer is producer is producing. Once it has finished producing, finished production, it's calling the consumer method to eat. Once it has finished eating, it again calls back the producer to produce. Now this loop will happen, I mean this chain will happen. This is the basic idea of calling back. But the problem here is this producer, and I mean, is the object to producer the one who called you for eating? Got the doubt? Here I am calling the consumer to eat by calling the eat method using the obj object. So obj means a particular consumer, right? And a particular producer is sending that particular consumer the food to eat. But when I'm calling back again the producer, is it the same producer or is it some other producer? We have never copied the object references, right? We simply defined a wild object producer and tried to call this produce method. So this is not something logical. I need to call the producer who sent me the food to eat. Once I finish eating, then I will only call that producer itself. I will not call any other person. So that's why we need to map the producer object with the consumer object. So callback will always happen by a one-on-one mapping between the two objects participating in this process. So that's why we need, what we have to do is we need to pass his reference, right? And in the eat method, we will accept this reference, right? And there can be multiple ways of doing it. What we can do is we can pass this reference, that can be done. What we can do is we can create an object like Sir has done. Sir has created an object of the class that we try to call. So maybe consumer C equal to new consumer, right? And then Sir has called, I mean, pass that C dot eat, and in this Sir has passed the this method, sorry, that this object. Now once I get this object over here in the eat method, okay, I can also use it using constructor and assign this obj2 as this the reference that I'm getting. Okay, getting the point? I can make obj2 equal to, I mean, let's take this as producer x equal to x, right? And then what I do is I can call x dot produce. Now this is a proper call. This is a proper call because this x is pointing to that specific producer who told me to start eating or finish. Yeah, start eating. Once I finish it, then I should call only that particular producer who sent me. So therefore, this passing of this reference is very important. Now, if you see the code that Sir has taught us using the callback, you will see that we are passing this reference. But here we are doing it using the constructor. So I told there are two ways. We can do it using constructor, or we can do it using the same method. So the f method is actually calling the start method by creating an object of the timer class. Here timer is just like our consumer. Now we are passing the producer's reference to the consumer and using that. And again allocating that this timer owner 1 equal to in the constructor as O, because which where this is passed. So this is there in owner, and calling that particular owner which called this timer method. So that is very important point, which makes it one-to-one mapping in callback when you are copying the object types. If you do not copy it, the object types, then also callback is happening, but that is some random callback. That is not with respect to the object which called you. You are calling that object back. That is not happening. So you must execute this thing where it's passing this pointer and mapping a one-to-one object relation between the two participating callback classes is very important. And yeah, so you have to do that. And when the practice question of voting was there, right? EVM and voting, that was there. So you have to be very clear with this concept. If you try to do that code, it is very a bit involved code. So maybe in some session, maybe I don't know. We have not talked this, but we will discuss this with the team, and maybe in one session we will discuss about that practice code of EVM and voting election. Okay. So my request is you can try that code. It would be a good experience. So you have to implement the callback in this fashion, where you do a one-to-one mapping between the objects. Okay, fine. Okay, so that was it for today. I think we will end the session for now. So thanks all for joining.
You didn't discuss question number 9.
Question number 9.
You said you will discuss it at the end.
Oh, just a second.
Practice assignment question number 9 that was pending. We'll discuss it at the end.
Just a second. Question 9. Oh, okay. Now I think it should be very easy.
Yeah.
Is the code visible? I will not make it smaller than, not larger than. It is important that we get the whole code. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. So what's happening over here? See, the same thing, the same discussion that we did. This is the same thing. Let's don't go into the details. Let's see. There is an interface called academy. There is a class university. There is a private class called college inside the university. Right? There is a private class of college inside the university. Now we have some methods, a getName method, a getID method, fine. And here we have defined the objects accordingly. Sorry. Okay. And we are trying to call the getName and getID methods, right? But is the getID method defined in academics? Is it overriding?
Compilation error, that's why we discussed few minutes back.
Yeah, that's the code generates. This code generates a compilation error because getID method of the class college is not accessible because it's not overridden. Here, if we define just write getID method over here, okay, maybe default, maybe abstract, whatever, it would work.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So that's why I said just have the basic idea of that code which we discussed. If you understand that code properly, your iterator, callback, all these things would be clear. And why we need that overriding, that is important. So unless and until you go to runtime, you will not be able to see the overriding and access that particular method which is encapsulated inside. So that is important. Okay. Okay, fine. So should we close the session now? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good night, everybody.
Yeah, good night. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night, all.